Welcome back to The Paper Fold. I am your host, Sarah, the paper nerd, and I'm so glad to be back nerding out with you on my favorite topic, stationery. My guest today is Suzy Ultman, who has technically been in our trade since childhood when she began creating toys and books for family and friends. A born storyteller, as you will shortly hear for yourself, Suzy creates sophisticated and simple objects that inspire and delight young and old alike. Every last item she creates, from toy to craft, celebrates play, creativity, connection, and community in the world around us. Unlike many makers, Suzy has mostly gone the licensing route, with many of her toys produced by Petite Monkey, and she recently released a really sensational range of cards from Egg Press. But whoever she is working with and whatever she is creating, there is so much more than meets the eye here. From her personal losses and trials to the people who helped her get through them, to the many places she has called home, it's all commemorated and celebrated in Suzy's designs. Suzy is very intentional and thoughtful about every last creation she puts out into the world, and she likes to nerd out on design nearly as much as me. It's all coming up right after this. Hey nerds, when I started this podcast, it took time to find my stride, but I was beyond fortunate to have one infinitely iconic bitch in my corner cheering me on, reminding me that I was having a human experience and slaying it was well within reach. I am referring, of course, to the crown jewel of the Paper Fold podcast crown, Girl with Knife, and of course, the girl behind that knife, Alicia Castaldi. If you haven't yet gotten acquainted, this brand is your new BFF in paper goods and now home decor as well. The card I just quoted, remember, you're an infinitely iconic bitch having a human experience, just won a 2023 Louis Award in the Humorous Friendship and Encouragement category. Inspired by an unforgettable encounter Alicia had with a majestic green dragonfly, it celebrates the unflinching resilience of the female spirit. Once you see it, you'll be surprised by how powerful a humble greeting card can be, and also why in 2022, Alicia was named Artist of the Year. And that's just one tiny taste of the latest and greatest from the enchanting Girl with Knife world. New this summer are 2 candle releases I cannot wait to sniff: Poetic Chaos, Essence of White Flowers, and Rogue Floral, Essence of Exotic Petals. Along with some matching gift wraps and irresistible card designs, it can all be shopped in the exquisite design haven better known as the Daniel Richards Showroom in Atlanta and Dallas. Can't make it to market? You can always hit this fair top shop 24/7. Meanwhile, if you're a paper nerd out in the wild looking to express your best self as you uplift those you adore, I'm a little jealous that you get to experience this fantastic and fantastical world for the first time. Head on over to girlwithknife.com and immerse yourself. I guarantee your stationery, as well as your living and workspaces, will slay. Suzy, welcome to the Paper Folds.
Thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be here hanging out with you this morning.
Thank you. So let's get into it. You've been creating toys and books for your family throughout your life and have attained a very high profile in the gift and stationery communities, but you never went the maker route where you manufactured, promoted, and shipped everything yourself. Instead, you partner with brands via licensing. Petite Monkey for your toys, Egg Press for your stationery. Mm-hmm. It's a different trajectory than a lot of makers take, but your work, regardless, has attained a certain omniscient quality. It's both distinctive and recognizable. Of course, it's true. So while all roads lead to Rome, why did you select this route?
I think it was sort of a happy accident. When I started in my illustration career, I was working with an artist agent, and some of the projects that came my way early on were product development. So I had a stationery set. My first project with Chronicle Books was actually stationery. And then
I think I remember. I'm sorry, Dinner. I think I remember. Okay. Was it the nesting dolls?
Close. It was Paper Doll Parade.
Paper Doll. Oh, I remember that one too.
And then we did the nesting dolls afterwards.
Those were amazing. I
love
those.
So much. Yeah, Paper Doll Parade was. I was going through a separation at the time, and I had a lot of women friends checking in on me and giving me support and helping me move forward. So every girl in that paper doll parade represents a different woman in my life that was helping me. So it was a very therapeutic project. And also it showed me like how I could use my art to move forward and to work through stuff and find like the positive energy around me. So it was a really important project for that reason. And then also the Edit Art Chronicle I had at the time was really excited about making stationery like really tactile and having some form of object quality. So when they gave me Paper Doll Parade, they just said like contemporary paper dolls. And they had a couple of characters that they'd seen that I had drawn in mind, but it was very open. So this idea of having like these die cut characters that you can use as stationery. I know a lot of people write me that they still have them. You know, you can hang them in your room. You can actually play with them. It got me very excited. And then the next one was Masha and Friends, which were the pop-up nesting doll stationery.
Yes.
And that really pushed the idea of the object quality of actual stationery because there was no template for that. There were lots of rounds of just playing with paper, which I love to do, cutting, like figuring out like how are we going to execute these so that they're fun to look at, they can stand, and they're actually, you know, you can use them as stationery. So that was like my first toe dipping into this idea of how do you bring more life to something that could be seen as disposable. You know, you use it once and then it's gone. How can you give something a second life? How can you make it, even though it's for a younger audience, how can you make it, like, how is it playful to people who are young at heart and want something like that? And then from there, I was working with a company called Land of Nod.
Yeah, I know them.
Right. So
they're part of Crate. They're the children's division of Crate and Barrel, correct? Yeah.
Right.
A lot of people have done, Stacy Gingerber has done a lot of work for them. Like they really, I think, are so thoughtful about the illustrators and designers they partner with, and they really create, you know, these amazing sort of living spaces for children, which, you know, as a mom, when my daughter was young, like I just thought it was brilliant. And you know, so they made a good choice.
Yeah. So early on, when they were Land of Nod, when I was working with them, they decided they're mainly catalog and based, and they were bringing in a lot of toy products and crafting products from other companies. And they decided one year, they're like, we want to make our own products. So kind of what you're talking about from my end, they're like, let's try making it. And I think within a year, they needed like 100 SKUs. So they put out an email to the artists and people they worked with saying, like, if you have any ideas, send them our way. And I've always been of the mindset, if I'm excited about something, I just like jump in with like everything. And I'm just like, sure, yeah, I can do this. So within about a week's time, I just sat around the house playing. I found like different materials in the house that I could work with to mock up what I thought could be like craft kits or dolls. I sewed some dolls, all that stuff. And I started that relationship with them creating products. And so I think between like the Chronicle stuff and the Land of Nod, I was very busy learning how to make things. Like, what did it look like? What was, you know, the production schedule? If you want to do this, like, who are you working with and what part of the world? What are the issues you run into in terms of with some of the wooden figures, like painting versus decals, and on and on and on. And then from there, that led me to the relationship with Petite Monkeys. So I just had this very, I think, organic growth of creating products with my clients that were challenging for me. And also like an amazing place to learn a ton about producing product. And so through that evolution, I just kept working like licensing with other people. Then right before COVID, I feel like we all have this COVID timeline. So I think it was right before COVID, which is what, like 3-4 years ago.
Roughly.
I opened my e-commerce shop, and I did that because I wanted to try e-commerce as, you know, like as a next avenue of income for myself. And also because
Sure.
I think I saw what you were talking about, that I have all these products that live with different clients. And if I brought them under one, into one home, they would all read as me. It was like a place to come see Suzy. So I started reaching out to my clients and finding out, like, can I wholesale with you? Most of them have that set up for artists. And I created, I'd had a website that was my portfolio, and I created a shop website that carries all of my products, not all of them, but a huge amount of my products.
The majority,
From different people. But the way that I could then brand it as me. Then with time, I do have some of my own products I've created with it that I do sell on my site. So then I was like, okay, well, now I've done this. The next step is to create my own product. And I've had many conversations with many peers about how important that is. Because it's a consistent revenue stream if you're creating your own product. There is investment in it. It's something that like if clients might come and go, but if you're creating your own work to sell, that's always there. And then also you get to tell exactly the story that you want to tell. You get to decide. So I'm still figuring that out. Like, what are the products to make? What are the ones that people are looking for outside of like what I've already got? I have a very good friend in stationery who, from the beginning, she's like, do paper. Like, it's, paper it's easy to ship. It's easy to print. You can print in the US. Like all the things we think about,
everything is.
With like supply chain stuff, like you can actually make that work pretty easily with stationery. But I do have a passion for products. So I tend to make things a little more complicated on myself. I'm like, but what if I made a wooden toy? Like, what if I finally did that? So I am looking at avenues to do that. It's slightly more complicated, but it's something that's exciting for me. So while I've continued to grow while I'm licensing, I can grow and learn. I'm like learning from egg press as I create stationery with them, learning, how they're so excited to talk about like what cards are selling and like what's happening in the market, because each market is very different in how people purchase things. Like how somebody buys a gift for their kid is different than how they respond to a card on the shelf against like hundreds of other cards and like what they're being drawn towards. So I get to learn with them and then take that knowledge with me. So I think both ends of it are really important. I've just been doing more licensing because it's kind of where I started and where my comfort was, and then moving slowly into making my own products.
Sure. So that's amazing. There's a lot to unpack there. I love that you started in a good way, in the very best way. I love that you started with paper dolls. I think like the paper doll medium, like there's something magical about it. I happened to play with them a lot when I was little, and we would my mom would get those books from Dover, where there would be like paper dolls of the 1930s or paper dolls of the 40s, and I've always loved clothes. I just think there was like a lot going on there. And recently I learned that, Barbie was inspired by paper dolls, that the woman who founded Barbie, who was Jewish, was watching her daughter playing with paper dolls and realized, wow, she has all baby dolls, but look, she likes changing the clothes, and, this is an adult, and let me create a doll for that. So there's something like very like, I don't know, powerful about that format. And I love that you sort of like began experimenting with it, especially through stationery, but also like, establishing your brand and persona. I love that there's such a personal connection to your paper dolls. I have to say, I'm a child of divorce. My mom got divorced in the 70s. And she had like back then they called them consciousness raising groups, where like she would have a whole bunch of her divorced friends over, and like they'd all bring their kids, and all the kids would play, and all the women would like talk about whatever their concerns were. So like the fact that you like kind of personally memorialize them in this product is so beautiful. And I think that it just makes it all the more powerful. Like, even if it's resonating very privately for you, like that connection still kind of like comes through in the product. And so I just love that.
Thank you. Most of my work definitely comes from I think it comes from my child self for sure. Like she's 100,000,000% in there. But then there are two like pretty big life-changing things I went through that made me look at my art differently and look at how I was approaching life and all of that stuff. And and so it's behind like every like playful, fun thing you see. There's definitely like a deeper story. And that was one of the big life-changing times.
Hey nerds, since our beloved stationery community is scattered to the four winds, it is very easy for makers to feel isolated and alone. It is also too easy to open up your Insta, see the success of other brands from the outside, and feel completely lost. But feel lost no longer. KMB Wholesale Intensive is a powerful tool to take your business to the next level. The self-study, self-paced course was created by my dear, inspiring friend, Catherine Hildner of Kitty Meow Boutique, a stationery range that is fun, fierce, and specifically designed to make women feel confident, empowered, and courageous. These distinctive offerings can be shopped in over 1,300 stores and 13 countries around the world, and Kat wants makers to experience the same with their own offerings. So, this Dynamo mentor has condensed the secrets of her success into the newly reconfigured KMB Intensive. 6 training videos are paired with clear homework to take focused and aligned action, plus there's spreadsheets, checklists, templates, swipe copy, and workshops galore to inform your own path. This easy, affordable program will have you navigating the wholesale stationery scene like a seasoned pro as you enable your brand to truly blossom. Lesson 1 focuses on all-important pricing, ramping up your range and your wholesale catalog. Lesson 2 is all about pitching your line with confidence and a streamlined strategy. Lesson 3 delves into product and shipping, packaging, customer experiences, and the all-important tool of delegating. Lesson 4 tackles implementing solid SEO, another biz essential. In Lesson 5, Kat takes on a real doozy that I know is a huge challenge for other makers, marketing and selling without being a creeper. And finally, the course closes with Lesson 6, plan of attack to snag those sales at market. I have seen Kat at many shows, and take it from me, that girl works them like nobody's business, except maybe yours. I love that this coursework is designed to be tackled on your own time as you can. So many of us juggle families and other jobs, so you study when you can, no guilt required. All this easy to access and revisit knowledge is so affordable at $397 or 2 payments of $203. That price also includes access to the private KMB Wholesale Intensive community on Facebook, where you can interact in real time with others who are also serious about scaling their wholesale strategies. Help is never far away, and with the KMB Wholesale Intensive, Catherine is there for you and most likely has encountered your challenge already. She is so transparent and inspiring, it is difficult not to be infected with her enthusiasm. Kat is graciously giving Paperfold listeners $50 off the purchase with the code PAPERNERD, all one word, all in caps. Meanwhile, as the summer markets kick off, Kitty Meow Boutique is releasing 20 new fantastic designs. Wholesale friends, shop this esteemed 5-star house of paper on Fair 24/7. And if you are a paper nerd in the wild, start your shop at kittymeowboutique.com. And don't forget, if you are not seeing this brand on the shelves of your favorite card and gift shop, ask the owner to stock it already. So get on this already, kitty cats, and be sure to tell Kat that Sarah sent you.
I also wasn't sure like what was next for me and the kids, where we were going to live. And we had moved around a lot, and we were,
that's a big question.
Yeah. We'd moved around a lot, and we had landed in, Massachusetts, which was where there was no family, and it was about 13 hours from anybody. So, I was making a decision to move to Columbus, Ohio with them. And I was kind of I was like, what's home? I've had to move them so many times. And it started me thinking about the idea of home. And I came to real peace when I understood that home was like, if I was being consistent and helping them move through their day, like I was their home when they were little, and them being healthy and being able to like move forward in their life in a positive way was home. Like that was all we needed, was that. And so I started exploring at that time. The way I said goodbye to the town that we were in is I drew a lot of homes from the town, and that became I was working on Paper Doll Parade and something called Home Sweet Home, which was a poster.
Oh, I think I remember.
those were the two projects. So Home Sweet Home is drawings from the town that I was leaving, saying goodbye, and kind of trying to understand like what home was going to mean for us next, not knowing the city we were going to, but not really knowing the city, knowing my sister was there, not knowing where we were going to live. And then that's stayed consistent through my work, because then I opened it up to all these great places that I had lived and moved to, and people I'd met and what they meant to me and how they changed me. And so you'll see. So then as I move forward, you'll see homes in a lot of my work.
I love that. And the other thing I forgot to mention is I feel like you sort of got you sort of had a professional licensing apprenticeship where, you worked with these big companies, and then you're able to do it on your own, which is like, I mean, I don't know, like some people would pay for an experience like that, and that was just part of your career. So I love that. It's very cool.
I think one thing that's really advice I could give to anybody, because it's really helped me, is to go into every experience as a student and learning, because sometimes you're getting feedback that doesn't quite feel right. But if you're, instead of going into like, oh my gosh, but I want to do it this way, I see it this way, going into like asking like, why do you see it this way? Is that like what the audience needs? Is that how it needs to, like, is your production schedule needing that? And then you can have like deeper conversations, and you can always be learning. So I do try to go into every experience as a student of whoever I'm working with. We're a team, and we're all putting this out together. And it's really helped me along the way, because it just opens up the ability to learn more. It keeps the communication is always much smoother, and it makes for great relationships. So
yeah, well, I just think so many people invest their ego in their work so much that there's constructive criticism that we're all on the same team. We want this to be the best it can be, but often people just, it's very easy to take constructive criticism very personally, and I don't think it's usually coming from that place. And you just get better. You just learn how to flex that muscle better when you're a little more open-minded. But it's important to be working with people you trust and that are coming from a similar place, because the minute it starts, I don't know, it's a very delicate process, and it can upend itself at many stages in production. So you've touched on this, but I love that, you when we chatted before, and even in this interview, you've spoken about the importance of beginner's mind, but really it applies to the playful quality of your work. The zaniness and fun encourages us all to maybe not take ourselves so seriously and grow and develop through play. This idea expresses itself beautifully through your toys and games, but also through your stationery and like arts and crafts and more DIY designs. However, I know I have a lot of days when it's so hard to like sit down and intentionally be creative. In fact, if I'm telling myself to be creative, there's less of a chance that I'm going to get anything done except maybe catch up on my social media feeds. So I'm really curious about your creative process. How do you get going? How do you find that playful place of childlike wonder within you when you are stressed out?
Okay. Those are all really good questions. Let's see if we'll take them one at a time. So I think, so part of it is innate in me. I love to be goofy. I love to play. I was very fortunate. So this is another like part of my life that was really life-changing. So I was very fortunate. My little sister and I were best friends. She was super playful too. I feel like it's important to talk about because it gives some like understanding to how I approach the maybe the emotional or when things get stressful. But she lived with a chronic illness. So I saw her, she didn't share with many people when she wasn't feeling well because that wasn't her. She wanted to, she taught me how to like be in every day. And she brought a lot of playfulness, and because we, had grown up together, we had that. And then she was like that because she was like balancing, she might be in the hospital once a year. So she knew like every day she had that she was feeling good was like a day to just embrace. And then she unfortunately got cancer, and she died 7 years ago. And in that, and in my processing the grief, I wanted to find a way to honor her and keep moving our relationship forward and keeping her with me. So this idea of play, that's when it really started like rising to the top of my work, where I actually was able to identify the word, like make time for play, because I would think of Joanna and all the things we would do together and how she approached life. And I'm like, I need to carry that with me because I need to keep her with me all the time. So it takes a lot to stress me out because I've been through some stuff when I know what bad news looks like. I know what a really bad day looks like. So in terms of managing my stress, that is might sound weird, but is like a gift that walking with her through her entire life to her death has given me, is understanding that what like a really bad day looks like. So there's that piece of things. And then there's also the play piece that I just, as soon as I decided that's how I was keeping her with me, like it was just easy to know that like it just became a part of me. And I think it was always there too. I grew up loving goofy things, weird TV shows. I used to watch a lot of HR Puffin stuff. There's a show I particularly like called Lidsville, where all the characters are hats. A guy falls into a giant top hat, and he ends up in a world with all these hats that are, there's like the good hats and the bad hats, and it's really goofy. It's from the 60s, and it somehow was like we were watching it in syndication. I love Pee-wee's Playhouse. That was like when I was a little bit older, but anything like that, I was definitely pulled towards things that were a little bit quirky and irreverent, maybe a little bit weird. I loved anything Ray Harryhausen from the 80s, where he had like stop motion characters. So I did live in that world before like adult life hit me, and I was like, I'm going to choose how to take this all with me forward. So,
I think I'll stay here.
Yeah. So that is I think that's one of the other big life moments that really changed how I was approaching my day, which affects how I approach my work.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I mean, when most people have a bad feeling, or a negative experience, or something we don't want to deal with, the knee-jerk reaction is to push it away.
Exactly.
And so when you get to a place where you're like, well, I'm not going to be scared, I'm going to sit with this and, like see what it's all about. Yeah. And really, I mean, it's interesting. You almost take a playful approach to grief. Not that I'm diminishing it or belittling it at all, but like you really have to sit and live with something before you experience that. And I think when you're a creative, you best get used to working through these icky feelings. Then the good ones, you can lean into that much more. And
that's a really good way of putting it. Absolutely. You'd asked me a question about like if you're not feeling creative that day, which I think goes to, this might sound counterintuitive when we're saying like, well, it's not actually. You're talking about like leaning into things. If you're sitting down, so if I'm sitting down and I'm not feeling creative, there's typically something else going on with me that I just know from doing. I've been doing this. I've been illustrating for about 15 years, and I've been a creative professional for about 25 years. That it's just not like if it's not going to happen, it's not going to happen, and I need to walk away and change something. Like whether I need to do some like healthy procrastination, like go make a snack, go sit outside, work on something where I can feel like I've accomplished something. So whether it's just like admin, like I need to do a to-do list, or I need to send some emails, something where I feel like I've accomplished it. Because usually for me, if I'm feeling like I can't sit and create that day, it's usually because I'm afraid of something, whether it's in the project. I'm usually like, maybe there's something inside me that's like, you don't know if you can solve this problem. Like, you don't know if you know the answer to what this project's going to look like. It's some sort of fear inside of me that's like, oh gosh, this is new. This is scary. So I just need to give that part of myself a little time to chill out. And then mostly I can, come back to things and understand that. I recently, I was doing some classes for Creative Bug, and there were several parts of it that were outside of my like wheelhouse of what I'd done before. And I was healthy procrastinating quite a bit. I couldn't see, usually I can see where a project is going to be at the end, and I could not see this. And I was really scared. And I kept telling myself, this is a good thing. Like, it's a good thing to be scared because that means you're trying something new. And it's also a good thing to not know where you're going because that means you're trying something new. So I just had to give myself some space to hear those voices in my head. And then I had to give those voices in my head, like, okay, like, it's okay. Like, just how can you get started that you'll feel comfortable with? Like, what's one part you can do today so that you feel comfortable moving forward? And usually once I cross that line of just doing the one piece of it, things are better. But it might take just changing up the space, talking to somebody for like 15 minutes on the phone, taking a walk, like something that just gives me some space to, like, just allows time to not be so sure about what I'm doing, because that happens to all of us. We're just not sure about like what to do. So just like listening to that voice and not being mean to that voice. Like, that voice is there because you're doing something new and maybe something hard for you, and being like, it's okay. Like, you're allowed to feel that way. And what do you need to get to the next step? Like, what do you need right now? So that's,
yeah. Well, there's nothing scarier than the unknown and change.
Yeah.
And as frightening as it is, that's the only way we grow and get to the next point. Was this your first collab with Egg Press?
It was, and it's my first real stationery collection, other than like one-off things that I've done.
I'm sorry, and I should have this written down. There's 18 designs in it. There's like under 20 SKUs. We'll say. How many did you sort of, start with, and how were the ones that you went with sort of, like, what did that process look like?
Oh, that's a good question.
In snail mail, people are communicating in a different way.
Right.
And so, like, I'm sure, you had so much raw material and it was all great.
Yeah.
But like, obviously, like, certain things are going to work best in the stationery format, and also in the letterpress format, which is a little bit priced. Like, there's something about like buying a card for a friend that you see on a card wall. Like, there's a very, there's like a certain equation there. And I guess what I'm curious about is, and maybe I need to just circle back and ask you in a couple of months, like, which designs like hit the mark, which designs, I'm always curious about that, because to me, that's always that's almost like that's just like a bit of magic where it's like, we're taking this and putting this out there. And I'm always curious about that aspect.
So I went to Shop Object in New York to hang out with the Egg Press folks, and I did some drawing while I was there on site, which was really fun. So I got a chance to see how people were responding. Yes. And my work was there alongside Egg Press and Hello Lucky and two other brands. So I could kind of see how they all work together.
Yes. And that was last winter, and they had them all like they were like displayed in a booth, larger booth, in a larger Shop Object booth, and a lot of white space. And then they sort of said, okay, here's Suzy, here's this one. And so they were each sort of in their own subspace, or, and they worked very nicely together. And it was I enjoyed looking at it immensely. And I thought every maker sort of brought something different to the table, yet they all work very well together. And,
it's really fun, because I've been following the Hello Lucky sisters forever, and I love them. And so to be sitting next to them and see like how, I think they're very playful also, and seeing how those two things connect. Like that we help each other, and that it was really fun seeing that. Plus I have a ton to learn from them, because their understanding of letterpress and how to layer the color on the letterpress is like, they are Wonder Women. They understand that so well. And that's something I'm excited to learn as I go along.
Yeah. I'm sure your work's just going to get more interesting. And yes, I happen to just be looking through the Egg Press submissions that you so kindly had them send me. for fall editorial, and I was absolutely knocked out by the Hello Lucky. I mean, your collection, absolutely, but I was like, oh my gosh, who did this card? And then I'm like, oh, of course, it's Hello Lucky. And they've been doing it long enough that they've gotten it to, their stuff is just so visually interesting and dynamic. I guess they have so many designers or so many makers under their roof who are telling these very distinctive stories that it's just it's so interesting and it's so compelling. If I had a store, I would be buying from every brand.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I mean, the letterpress printing process. So I've done screen printing before with products, but like going from, full color illustration to letterpress, where you're working with mainly 2 to 3 colors, maybe sometimes 4, and then you can get more colors out of how you're layering it. But it's like not, it's not always guaranteed what that, layering process is going to look like. It's very exciting, and it's also very new for me. So I'm not, the printers there are amazing. They're very helpful with giving ideas of how to add to it. But I do think you're right. Like over time, I'll be more like, there'll be more time to understand and play with and the letterpress process, because I think this time it was just understanding what they needed and where I fit with them, and then designing the line.
And I think as the collection develops and as it exists out there, you're going to see, people really gravitated toward that. I'm going to try something in this direction or maybe develop this idea a little more. But absolutely.
Something we did do with my collection was we just kept it really straightforward. There aren't any puns, because I don't typically use puns in my work. I do like to work with language, but Egg Press was really supportive. They're like, no, just use the language you use. So just will say, I think one says thanks a bunch, but they do say what they are essentially, which I really enjoy, because I'd rather do happy birthday or I like you're silly. I don't usually work in the world of puns.
Sure. Yeah. No. And a lot of people do that. And if that's not your thing,
I love
don't do it. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's slightly different from.
I'm looking at your collection. You have this great Hello Birthday. That's fun. That's a fun twist on it. Or the other one that I saw was the Birthday Hugs, where it's just a bear with a party hat. Hug. It's smart. It's a different approach. It's not a pun, but it's very much organic to you. And I think their customers will get it and lean into it.
It's how I communicate with my friends. If I'm sending them a text for their birthday, it's what I would write to them. So that's what you're seeing reflected in the cards.
That's awesome. I love it. So my next question, in a planet that is filled with junk and landfills, how do you approach making items that will be of value?
Yeah, that's, I think we talked about the fact that I had an existential crisis. I think a lot of people did during COVID, as I had time to kind of sit with that thought a lot. And I did play with the idea of switching careers and maybe teaching. I feel very passionately about working with kids and working for kids, and the idea, of making things that will be maybe in landfills for them to deal with and impact the planet that they're growing up on was a big thing for me to kind of work with. So staying in the field that I'm staying in, just making the smartest decisions that I can make and asking the questions that I need to ask of a client before we get started. Finding out what materials they're working with, how they're distributing stuff. Do they have any give back programs? Can we make this product something that will last? How can it last as long as possible in somebody's house? Right. Will it be a hand-me-down? Will it be something that, how minimal can we make the footprint of this product in many different ways? So generally, I just try to ask as many questions as possible with my clients up front to make sure we're on the same page. And then I have to make the hard decision of whether like I'm okay with those answers. And if I'm not, then walking away from projects.
Right.
And then the other piece of it too is just really thinking about the shelf space I'm taking up. So like anything I make, what is it the most Suzy that I'm making it, so that is there like another product out there? Do we need another product like this?
Right.
If I am making like cards or stickers, that there's a lot of that out there. How is it the most me, so that there's a reason for it to exist? So for this card line, Egg Press was super open to this. We have 2 cards that are specific to the Jewish community. And it was really exciting for me to have that representation, because growing up loving cards and being Jewish, there aren't a lot of fun modern
There aren't. No.
So,
it's a segment I overlook,
yeah.
and I'm Jewish. So
Yeah.
I love that you've made that a part of your line. And I think it like very much goes right into my last question, which is something else we talked about. You mentioned you had reconnected with your Jewish heritage in an interesting way lately, and you're finding yourself flexing your muscle through your work. And it is about a couple Jewish designs in your Egg Press release, but it's about a little bit more than that. Judaism means so many different things to different people, and Jewish people, including myself, we all practice and live its teachings and values differently.
Absolutely.
Personally, for me, Judaism has not become so much about, say, gathering to say our annual prayers for Rosh Hashanah in Hebrew. That's in a couple weeks. It's more about how I walk through this world and try to improve it as I can. So I'm curious, what do they mean to you, and how are you expressing them these days?
Yeah. So I always loved my Judaism. Like I grew up in a household, we did Shabbat every Friday night at my grandparents' house, and I loved doing that. And my parents are very involved with the Jewish community, and I was in Sunday school and Hebrew school. And I lived in Israel for a year with my family when I was in first grade. My dad took a sabbatical there from Penn State, and we all lived in Haifa for a year. So I always loved it, but I was also very, there was a part of me that was very nervous about it. Because I think like most people that are kind of like outside of the majority, there are times when it goes from like not being represented to then also sometimes not being included in things. Like around Christmas time, like really important time. Like I thought Christmas was beautiful, and I thought Easter was amazing because there was lots of chocolate, but you're not included in those things. And then there's like and then there's the extreme end of it, was just experiencing anti-Semitism in all different forms. So there was that, all those pieces for me kept me kind of scared to share. So that stuff was with me from childhood. So I had like the 2 ends of it, right? Like the real joy and what I loved, and then also some of the like, how do I share this? And again, during COVID, when I was kind of thinking about what's my shelf space, what are my stories to share, it really came clear to me that in order for me, like I can tell my story of being Jewish and like how I've brought it through my life and what it means to me. Like I can actually speak to that. And I don't speak for all Jews, so I am taking up shelf space in other
none of us speak for all of us. Like, let's just make that very clear, because, you know, when you are the only one in the room, and this absolutely does not only apply to Jewish people, it applies to any ethnicity or minority or what have. When you're the only one in the room, like a lot of people look at you and are like, you represent all whatever this group is. And it's not the case. We all experience that in a very, very individual way. And the hope is we can connect others who might be feeling a similar way from all backgrounds. There's a definite value there, I think. I love that you're doing it. I got really excited when I saw 2 cards in the range. I can't think of another collection I've seen that, and they're very open-ended. I mean, one says Mazel Tov and one says Shalom. These are very versatile, open-ended phrases that mean a lot of different things to different people.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, I think I experienced Judaism very similarly to you. I see it, all around me in nature and how I'm interacting with other people. And for me, especially the Friday night, like being able to memories of us all meeting up at my grandmother's and seeing my dad kind of like release the work week and just kind of smile and sit into dinner time and us all talk, and knowing that we're saying goodbye to the work week and hello to the weekend, and having that wonderful time to recognize that, it really formed me a lot. And that's something I took with me through I've changed Shabbat. Like when the kids were little and I was a single mom, we would order pizza because it was my way of simplifying Friday night, right? So I could actually be with the kids and not worrying about, the week was always pretty tiring. So Friday night, pizza night, we sat on the floor and had picnics. And in my head, that was my Shabbat, saying like goodbye to the week, and I get to be with the kids and just be in this moment. And I think the first thing I did was probably a happy Hanukkah. And then I think I did Shalom, because I just remember as a kid, like coming to this understanding that it means so many things. Like,
hello, goodbye.
How are you?
How are you?
Yeah. Have a good, hope all's well in your home. Yeah. It's like, it means so many things.
Well. Like it's just a very positive thing to put out into the world and to put into the mail. Like someone opens that and they see Shalom or Mazel Tov, which it's more of like a celebration. It's having a healthy child. It's, starting a new job. It's buying a house. It's, all the exciting things in life. And it's just joining and
it's a fun word.
Celebrating them. It's so fun. It's so fun. I'm waiting for someone to do a line of Yiddish. I feel like someone needs to do a line of Yiddish cards, because there's so much great words and meanings, and like it's not going to resonate with everyone, but for those who get it, it's very fun and meaningful and playful.
Well, stay tuned. So part of all this during COVID, I started conceptualizing a children's board book series of Jewish books.
Fun.
And I'm in the process of finishing the first one, which is I Like Your Chutzpah and other Jewish words. So it's for kids, but it's also going to be for everybody.
That's great. Chutzpah, for those who don't know, chutzpah means like nerve, or it's like cojones in Spanish. It's like that spark that like you're gonna push something when maybe people are not expecting you to push it.
Yeah. So we're doing that one first, and then Shabbat will be next. It means a lot to me, and I feel like, when I talk to other people about it that aren't Jewish, it's something that they're like, oh, that's a really nice idea and during COVID, we really needed a way to break up the week. So we actually changed our Shabbat again to make it slightly more formal, because we need to know this week is ending, because everything was bleeding together. So
right. And one day is like the next day.
Yeah, so it became even more meaningful to us that we had something to mark the end of the week. And I think in a society that's always going and people, you could always be working, I think it's nice to have traditions or ideas of ways that you can say, okay, now I'm taking time for myself or for the family, but everything else, I can let everything else go. And
totally. These are beautiful traditions that very much, have a place in modern life. Who are you, the board books, if you don't mind my asking, are you self-publishing those? Are you collaborating with a house?
Yeah, they're with Penguin.
Who? Penguin. Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
They have an imprint called Rise, which the Rise imprint houses books about like social emotional learning, different cultures, body awareness, like all those kinds of things. So it'll be housed with other like really helpful, important, great books. So
that's awesome. Well, I know they'll do a good job with it. I mean, they're amazing.
Yeah.
But I love the idea that you're taking a lot of these concepts that were sort of designed, like the idea of Shabbat, let's say. I mean, it's designed as sort of like a cultural release, like everybody takes a break and blows up steam and doesn't work for a few days. And then when you come back, when the sun sets on Saturday, you're refreshed and ready to go kill it for another week. With Rosh Hashanah, which is approaching, and Yom Kippur, traditionally the idea is it's a new year. And between those two holidays, if you had a falling out with someone, if you regret something, you're supposed to go and, make it right, apologize, or just get to a point where you both see eye to eye. And I'm actually from Shaker Heights, which I grew up there, and it was the Shakers. It was a colony, and I was reading a little bit about them. And one thing that I thought was so cool is they actually adopted that within their colony. They adopted that. They were like, we sort of like how Jewish people do that. So around this time of year, we want everybody to get along. And so we're finding that if we encourage everybody in our colony to go through this process this time of year, even though it's not Christian, quote unquote, this is very beneficial to us as a community. And I just thought that was so beautiful. Obviously, they've died out, but but it's a beautiful idea. And I love the idea of just picking and choosing, these beautiful ideas and integrating them into your life in a way that works with today's lifestyles.
Yeah, I had a very, my rabbi was sort of a hippie, which was great.
Those are the best kinds.
Yeah, he played a guitar. He talked to us about the connection between like that God doesn't have to be big G-O-D. He's very progressive. It's it could be nature. It could be being outside and walking in the trees. So he planted those seeds really early when he talked to us as kids. And then between that and my friends who were close to me, anytime they experienced, they would come over for, Rosh Hashanah or for a Passover Seder. They're always this is really fun. And I like this, and I like the messages. And it gave me this sense that I did have certain traditions inside of me from being Jewish that were more expansive and had more of a human connection. And so those are things that I am trying to share. And then at the same time, also, I think be in, allyship with people that walk outside every day and look different just by the way they look. Whether it's you're the way you look, or if, you're in a wheelchair or whatever it is, I walk outside and people don't know that I'm Jewish. So it's important for me to speak to that in terms so that I can also be an ally. And
totally. I love that. Yeah. I mean, all of Passover is supposed to be look, you put yourself in the position of slaves. That's us.
Yeah.
And take a look around you. There are people in slavery, and you are to empathize with them. I had a rabbi. He wasn't a hippie rabbi, unfortunately, but those are the best. Rabbis with guitars. Come on, sign me up. But I was in a service, and he was like, if you want to take the 3 words of the Talmud, if you just want to encapsulate into 3 words, it's aid the oppressed. It's be with the one who needs help. And so to me, that's the lesson I want to take from it. I love that you're, taking what you see in it and sort of processing it through your work, for lack of a better term, I guess. I think it's a beautiful thing, and there's so many ways to do that. And it really makes me want to see what you're going to do next.
Oh, thanks.
So, Suzy, I cannot thank you enough for coming by. This was such a treat. And I really enjoyed understanding the personal elements of your work, and also this beautiful new letterpress release from Egg Press, Mazel Tov.
Oh, thank you so much. It was really a joy talking to you, and just thank you for sharing the space with me and letting me talk on and on and on about things.
I loved it. I loved every minute of it. Thank you.
Thanks, Sarah.
Thank you so much, Suzy, for dropping in the Paperfold. I so enjoyed learning what is going on the back end of your fantastic work, and Mazel Tov again on that gorgeous Egg Press release. Finally, thank you for listening. Of course, feel free to give me a 5-star rating and review if you are so inclined. The Paperfold is proud to be a member of the Evergreen Podcasts Network. To learn more about this dynamic community, please visit evergreenpodcasts.com. Thank you so much, nerds. Please stay safe out there.